Welcome to what I believe is the first event of today, the first panel this afternoon. It's certainly, I'm Louis Scheeder, graduated from Bauble in 1968. It says something, didn't graduate from Georgetown, graduated from Bauble in 1968. We've got a really distinguished panel of professional theater artists with us today. And I'm going to do a quick rundown of brief introduction of each of them. To my far left is Gus Kaikkonen, who's the artistic director of the Peterborough Players in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. He's a regular guest director at the Juilliard School. He just directed production at the Mint Theatre in New York, Dr. Knock, and which unfortunately I didn't see, but he's also a regular director at the Mint, and he directed an exquisite production of The Voice Inheritance a few years back. Sitting next to him is Tony Cisek, who is a scenic designer and based here in DC. He's won 4 Helen Hayes Awards for his scenic design. He's also been an arts consultant on new theaters in the DC area, and we're very welcome to have him here as well. Next is Robert McNamara, who is graduated in 1974 and is the co-founder of the Scena Theatre, and he's been a director here in DC and abroad for 22 years. From 77 through 81, 82, he was the artistic director of Dublin's Stage 1 Theatre. He's also worked at the Gate Theatre, and for many years he was the artistic director of the Washington International Theatre Festival. Next is Chris D'Amico, class of 88. Once he got out of Georgetown, he formed the Avalanche Theatre Company and did a very notable production of Oedipus Rex here in DC. He also went on to found the Noble Fool Theatre, a comedy improv group in a comedy theater in Chicago. And he had the good fortune to direct the basketball production of Elephant Man here at Georgetown while an undergraduate. Okay. Next, we have Victoria Bundonis, who is a working actor in New York. She's appeared in the first national tour of The Music Man. She's also been on tour with Frankie Valli in Greece. And she continues to work, and we're thrilled to have her with us. Joe Banno, over the last 25 years, has established himself as an innovative, critically acclaimed director. He served as artistic director of DC's Source Theatre Company. He's worked at the Folger Theatre. He's also an opera director, and he recently directed his first film, Sleeping and Waking. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Jack Hofsiss. And Jack, as you're probably aware, won the Tony Drama Desk Outer Critics Circle OV and New York Drama Critics Circle Awards for his direction of The Elephant Man. He's also been active in opera, he's active in film, television, and he continues to direct theater. So that's our panel for this afternoon. I think the format that we're going to do this afternoon is I'm going to ask each of the panelists to speak for about 3 minutes, okay? 2-3 minutes. And the question that I posed to them earlier, was relayed to them in conversation with Frank Tobin earlier this week, was the basic question: what was in the air? What was in the water? What was in the air? What made it happen? What happened to you? Because I think certainly that it's a remarkably distinguished group of people. There were many others, alumni of the Bauble, that went on to begin professional careers. Many of them chose to go into other careers. And this group represents that cohort that went on. So Gus, what was in the air? What happened? We know that Dr. Murphy had a great deal to do with it. And but if you could just speak to that, and we'll just go down in order.
Personally, I came to Georgetown to try desperately to get away from the theater. I picked a college where there was no theater degree purposely to try to get away from the theater. It was 1969. The Vietnam War protests were going on. And the first week I was here, I saw an audition notice for the Royal Hunt of the Sun. And I auditioned, and Dr. Murphy cast me as Atahualpa in the Royal Hunt of the Sun. And that production lasted our entire freshman year because it was, it was American College Theater Festival 2. We didn't even have a department, and we were picked and went on to be a finalist in the festival here in Washington. So we did it in the fall, and then we had to remount it. The Kennedy Center wasn't finished yet, so American College Theater Festival was performing at Ford's and at GW. And we were in the finals, and as a result of that, I got hired by the Folger to be in their first resident company because Richmond Crinkly saw me in that show and said, will you come and be in the Folger company? So my sophomore year I was acting at the Folger. But DBM's production of Royal Hunt was incredibly innovative. Some of the folks here were in that show. It was all done with, he and Mickey Hartnett, who was a wonderful actress here in the area at the time. I think she's in St. Louis now. We were performing in stage 1, which anybody my age and older remembers, with the pole in the middle of the stage, and it was a print shop that had been cleaned out and made into a theater, and you could go like that and touch the ceiling. So the whole magnificence of that play had to be done through mime, and this climbing the Andes in mime. We used each other. It was an extraordinary production. It deserved to go out to the American College Theater Festival, and it was DBM's imagination that made that thing happen and got my career started, in a way I could not any longer avoid.
Terrific. Tony?
I don't know, Victoria and I were just talking about this before, and I think what existed when I was here was an outlet for those who had a passion, and that's really all you needed. There were, I don't even think you could get any formal training here at the time when I was here, but if you were willing and had the energy, you could participate and you could create theater. And I think how I got involved, I had done some high school stuff. I came here to be a doctor, to be a biology major, and become a doctor like the smart kids do. And a friend of mine dragged me to a production of The Diviners that was going on at the time. And I was blown away that my peers could get together and create something that could move me. And I thought, well, I have to get involved. So I did. And I volunteered to paint scenery, I think, on the next show. And I was allowed then to design scenery and design lights and stage manage with no experience whatsoever. And I think by the time I graduated, I sort of had some hodgepodgey portfolio of pictures of, enough to get me an internship at Arena Stage as a scenic artist. That was sort of the beginning of, well, certainly the beginning of the end of my biology. But 5 years later, I'm still doing scenic.
Terrific. Robert?
Yeah, I was directed by Donn in Irresistible Rise of Arturo Uli. I just want to point out both my theater career and film career began in this university. The film was The Exorcist, I think 72. So I owe it all to Donn. I was on my way to Greek class with Father Aloysius Kelly in one of the buildings here, and so I got my close-up, my fame there. But at the time, I think in Washington, Donn's influence was fairly prevalent amongst the students because it was sort of the only game in town. It was Arena Stage, as you recall. I think the Folger was around then, and the National. I remember going to the National Theater before I even knew Donn, and seeing really spectacular shows. So his influence was on 2 fronts for me. As a teenager, I was going to Arena Stage, seeing Edith Stein, first play I saw professionally here. I'd been on the crew at Gonzaga. I'm a real Washington, and South Pacific, that kind of thing. Wasn't really my cup of tea. But I wanted to go ahead and be in this world, and it was mainly as a writer in the beginning, I think. But I acted for Donn in Arturo Uli as Hindenburg, Oxborough. And Gus was my other director here, and I think I worked for Jack as well. So I had a rich time coming into the theater at Georgetown. when I left, I think there were those 3 theaters there. They were the only game in town. I think the Washington Theater lobby was on. There's probably 1 or 2 places I'm missing. That little carriage house over by St. Matthew's Cathedral. But I went to Europe, and then I wanted to be a writer. I didn't want to be in the theater as an actor. And I have a similar story to Gus, walking through TCD at Trinity in Dublin, seeing these audition notices for some plays by William Butler Yeats. And that was the beginning of the end, and that's why I'm here today. And it was a rich experience, both here and there and going back and forth. But I think Donn's helped a lot of people here on this table here. And certainly nurtured quite a few people into going into a career that maybe not everybody in America would have nodded their head to. So I just want to say that in public and acknowledge him for that. Thanks.
Victoria and I and Tony did not have the opportunity to work with Donn Murphy because he had already turned over the reins of Mask and Bauble to other people by the time we got here. And hearing about these wonderful productions of Royal Hunt and Arturo Louis, and it's like, ooh, that would be fantastic to be involved with. But it was kind of a Wild West for us. We could pretty much, if you had people who would play with you, you could do pretty much anything you wanted here. And you know, I started a sketch comedy troupe while I was here, and Friday Afternoon Theater, which is not in existence anymore, and I kind of regret that. We're doing plays that Mask and Bauble would never touch. And you know, we did Hurly Burly and Cloud 9, which we did a couple of years ago. And it's wonderful seeing them doing those kinds of plays, but you know, they were just off Broadway when we were doing them. And you know, it was really exciting. And with the assistance of Gay Chima and Ron McNally, who's always great with students, you don't always get that from administrators. There's another person that I would like to, I think should be acknowledged, and was a key link between the Donn Murphy years and the Karen Berman years. And that's Mary Mitchell Donahue. She was moderator of Mask and Bauble for several years when we were here. And she did something remarkable. She had lots of energy, just had an MFA from Maryland, and came here and wanted to do a lot with us. And she brought in a series of professional designers. And Tony really benefited from that. Really, I had no skills. I was just a director. But he and John Mervish and lots of people who were really interested in design got a lot of those seminars. I think I trust, and you know, really started building a nucleus for a future for perhaps a theater program or some sort of methodical teaching of theater here. It was all seniors showing undergraduates how to do things before, you know, and it sort of brought some method to the training. And I think Tony really enjoyed the benefits of that, and many of us did. So that was the answer then.